Life is like an ice cream cone. You have to lick it one day at a time. The immortal words from Charles Schulz. So, like last episode, I decided that I'm going to have some conversations with some really interesting people and talk about how they maintain their mental health and what survival means to them. So today, joining me here in the North Volume Studios, I have Vrinda.
Drum roll.
And Andrew.
Taylor.
There you go. That's right. So before we get into this a little bit, why don't you take some time and tell us who you are and what you do. Let's start with you, Andrew.
Well, my name is Andrew Taylor, as we've already discussed on the show. I'm affiliated with Trashcast, which is like a local mixed media thing. We do a local podcast. Everything's local. We do local podcasts. We do local videos.
Cool.
Local shows with a focus on local news. We try to make it funny. It's called the Trashcast. Independently of that, sort of, I stream games on Twitch. Pretty much everything your modern gamer boy does. Try to make YouTube videos and all that good stuff. Oh, and metal music.
Right. And you work too, right?
No,
not much. Okay, that's fine.
I do. I work at Best Buy, and actually, after we wrap up recording today, I'm going to be spending my first day at the local downtown eatery, Sip.
Wow. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
They've got the best sweet potato chips.
Yeah.
They're my
Yes,
favorite thing. They're like eating rose petals of deliciousness.
Yes, very good.
Absolutely love it.
The buffalo chicken dip, like wonton things.
So good.
The pot stickers almost. I don't know. They're incredibly good.
Yeah. You're gonna gain like 40 pounds just working there.
I'm cool with
All
that.
right, Vrinda.
Okay, I don't have a resume like Andrew.
No, that's fine.
It's all right.
But I am an international student from Dubai, UAE. I identify as someone who's an Indian citizen. I came here in Plattsburgh 5 years ago for a undergrad in public health and social justice, and now I'm doing my grad program in mental health and counseling.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And you were just recently featured on another North Volume podcast,
Yes.
Why Wait Innovate.
Exactly.
Did you have fun doing that?
It was so much fun.
No?
It was my first time.
I really wish she's like,
It's
no,
all good.
Yeah.
No, Matt's really boring.
It was
I
so
hate
much
it.
fun. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I listened to it, watched the video, and I definitely learned some things.
Oh,
So today what we're going to talk about, we could spend a lot of time talking about the inner workings of both of yours lives because you are both very interesting people. But we're going to kind of try to stick to these questions that I sent you. So right out of the bat, let's start with a downer a little bit.
All right.
And what's one major health issue that disrupts your daily life? Vrinda, why don't you start?
I would say it is to do with mental health. I think so. Last summer I was diagnosed with PTSD, but it has gotten a lot better in terms of the symptoms. But mental health is something that doesn't you have to deal with something every day, or it might come back. So just the stressors of not only PTSD but also everyday life combined with it is something that I struggle with.
Okay, and you find that disrupts your daily life in what way?
I would say it would be negative self-talk.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Doubt, almost.
Self-doubt,
Sure.
or before saying anything or before doing something, just rethinking it. But it has gotten a lot of better because of some self-care practices.
Right.
Yeah. But
Okay,
it's still
so
there.
and let me just push on this a little bit.
Yeah.
You are somebody who is going to be leaving Plattsburgh State and pursuing a career in mental health,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So how important was it for you to start taking care of these issues that trip up your daily life?
For me, it became a matter of like ethics. How am I supposed to help or be a catalyst for someone else if I don't know my issues? And if I have someone who is sitting in my office and something triggers, then am I going to be fair to them? It was about that.
Right.
It started out as that, but then it moved on to, well, I deserve to have a healthy state of mind.
That's great.
It's not always about the profession. I think there's so much focus on work, what are you doing, what's
Right.
life about, the big question, where am I headed?
Sure, especially if you're a student.
Yes, exactly. But regardless of what your profession is, you deserve a peaceful state of mind. I think happiness is sometimes overused.
Yeah. We'll stay away from the H word.
Yeah, the H
But
word.
peaceful state of mind is, I like
yeah,
that a lot.
yeah.
So Andrew, what about you? What major mental health or health issue disrupts your daily life?
I'd say more general anxiety.
Anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay.
More, and I guess in particular, sometimes it feels really, it's frustrating because when you're somebody in my position where I've actually really worked on it and gotten to like a much better level, sometimes despite all that, anxiety can just make you feel bad. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
Like
yeah.
for no,
it has physical symptoms.
yeah, with no stimuli, it'll just be suddenly you're like, oh man, I wake up, you feel bad, or it manifests. Another thing about anxiety is that it manifests in the weirdest ways sometimes.
Sure.
You're like, well, the go-to is like, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. My heart's going insane. That's kind of like the go-to example. But dude, sometimes like my muscles will be sore.
Yeah.
And like weird ones you wouldn't expect.
Yeah. So I struggle with anxiety quite a bit. And I have this tendency to push myself because I don't trust my gut. Because if I trusted my gut, I would never get out of bed.
Yeah.
But so a physical manifestation, and not to cut you off, but just to kind of say like, this is how I feel. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, absolutely.
There have been times where, so one of my major anxiety moments, and I still struggle with it every day, is grocery shopping. The overwhelming idea of having to shop and also possibly run into people I don't necessarily want to see, or even worse, people I do want to see, because that's another social problem.
Yeah.
And having to make small talk and all that kind of stuff. So there have been several times that I've gone from my car to the grocery store, in the grocery store, got a cart, put a couple things in, and then turned around and left.
Abandoned it?
I had to.
Mm-hmm.
I had to because I physically could not move forward.
Yeah.
It was causing me pain. So I don't know if that's like something you've experienced in any sort of way.
Absolutely. To have a story similar to that, I bought a ticket to one of my favorite band's concerts, and I drove 3 hours to the venue. I was going alone, but I was planning on meeting friends. But it's a terrible venue, so we got separated, and there was no way for me to find them. So I was like really anxious. It was no real reason. I just was feeling it that day. It was one of those venues where you can't leave. You know what I mean? They're like,
Oh, sure.
Like you're like one
They're
time.
like, you're out.
Yeah.
You go out to smoke, you're out forever. Yeah.
So I was trying to. They told me that. I'm like, oh, okay, God. So I went to the other side, and I saw these people outside. So I was like, okay, I'll just go get some air. I walked outside, found out that was the smoking area. Absolutely no air available. So I eventually just had to leave. And I was just like, I just can't calm down. It felt too uncomfortable. So I bought the ticket, drove 3 hours for my favorite band, didn't get to see them.
Right.
And it happens. You know
It's
what I mean?
rough. It's rough. It's a rough thing that you have to deal with. And it seems silly if you explain it to somebody who doesn't experience anxiety,
Yeah.
Yes.
but
And
it's real.
And
Yeah.
the whole thing of, oh, well, you're leaving or you're doing this, you're being selfish. You know, that word
Right.
is so, I mean, you don't know what the other person's going through. If they're doing, I think, be selfish, if that's the new
Sure.
definition of it, you know?
I mean, if you listen to past episodes and stuff, I'll talk about selfishness, and I'll talk about like we need to destigmatize the
that
concept of
word.
selfishness,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
doing something for yourself, if
Yeah.
you're a good person and you help other people and you
Yeah.
are kind in your heart and
Yeah.
you're doing good things and you do
Exactly.
something for yourself, yeah, it's selfish, but so is everything else you do. And that's a
Exactly.
good thing, right?
Exactly, because I think being selfish is in a big way selfless, because you know that you're at best only when you can like take care of yourself.
Totally.
Yeah.
So if you're taking care of yourself, you can then do justice to whatever it is that you're pursuing. So if you have to leave, if you have to, like, sometimes I would wear headphones and have no music playing just so that people
Oh
know.
God, yeah.
On
the way
It's like
here.
it's like you're reciting my bio. I do that all the time. People know it, and people actually now, because they've heard the show or they've seen me speak at Plattsburgh State or other places. I talk about my tricks, and one of my tricks is I pop in earphones, even though I'm not listening to anything. If I see someone, I can always be like, "Hey, what's up?" And then move forward, because I
There
could
you
just
go.
be like, "I'm listening."
Yeah.
But now people know. I actually have a friend that has come on the show before, Bonnie, where every time she sees me wearing headphones, she goes, "I know what you're doing."
And you're like,
I'm like, you got me.
you got me.
You got me. But so let's move on to the second question I had for you, and that was, have you sought out professional help? Now, you did do that,
Yes.
Vrinda.
Yes, I did. Best thing I've ever done for myself.
Yeah?
Should have done it sooner.
Well, but it was difficult, right?
was.
How so?
It was difficult because, well, I would say the stigma,
Okay.
the only reason I said that I should have done it sooner is because I was like, well, I'm fine now, when something, it's not breaking point yet, which is not something you do for physical health, right? Like if some symptoms prolong for a couple of days a week, you do consider, okay, now I'll go to the clinic, or hopefully I'll, be in a doctor. But with mental health, it's like, oh, it's fine. I'm doing fine. I'm chill,
I'm okay today, so I'll be fine tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm invincible.
It'll never come back.
Beautiful, yeah. So that's what
So
I
how did you psych yourself up to take that next step? Because you said that the reason you sought out help was ethics, and kind of I guess you would say to be against the hypocritical concept of helping other people but not receiving help yourself.
Right. So I did it in the summer of last year. So 2018 was last year.
2018. Oh goodness, we're getting old.
I know. My gray hair is showing. But so it was in the summer. So I was like, I'm getting into the program. I know just from hearing about things that things come up and you're sitting in class and sometimes you're questioning your whole life. So I was like, before I get into that, I will seek some counseling and see where I'm at, how I'm doing.
And it benefited you.
It benefited me so much. I still go loud and proud of it, tell people about it. And sometimes I have to also understand people aren't ready yet to talk about it.
Right.
So sometimes I'll be like, yeah, okay, I can't come to this thing because I'm going to therapy. And everybody would be like,
right. Well, and I'm with you. I'm actually really proud that I see a therapist. However, I don't tell anyone who I'm seeing because I feel like there's some things I need to keep to myself.
Exactly.
But I will tell people that I go every so-and-so days, and this is how it is. So on that note, no social pressure, Andrew. Have you sought professional help?
Absolutely. I think in a couple different ways. When it first started getting rougher, when I was a little bit older, when I was experiencing some rough stuff, I did start seeing a therapist. She was really cool. It was definitely helpful. I more than encourage anybody feeling any sort of mental illness to do that, and it absolutely worked. But I thought I was getting to a better spot, so I was like, okay, I don't think I need to do this anymore.
But and that's actually okay.
Yeah.
People sometimes think that like when you start therapy, you have to do it every day for the rest of your life, and that's not necessarily true. You can go see a therapist about a certain thing, and if you start to feel better, you can pull away.
Yeah.
You just need to know that when you need to see them again, you should go do that.
Yeah.
And just to touch really quickly, I think something that at least that I experienced in my short time, like studying psychology in college and probably in your method of area of study as well, I feel like a lot of people don't feel that way. They feel like, oh man, if I'm studying to be a psychologist or a therapist, I can't have a therapist. I should know all this stuff. I should be able to use all those things.
True.
Absolutely not true.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're not immune to it. It's just like if I had a health teacher that was a smoker, she knew the health, but the risks of it. She still smokes.
Right.
I have a saying that makes no sense to most people, but I just love it, and that is the if every day I wake up and I go about my day, and I get attacked by a bear on a daily basis.
Yes.
I don't want to speak to somebody who studied bear attacks. I want to speak to somebody who survived bear attacks. You see what I'm saying? And I mean, and that could be somebody. So it's like that idea that if I go, and I have had instances where I've sought out mental health support from someone who would say, I don't experience mental health problems, then I'm always like, okay, cool, that's great. I'm sure you're a great guy, but I don't want to talk to you anymore. So
because you can't relate, or like. What do you?
It's important, but I also, if I'm going to talk to somebody, I want them to be real.
Yeah.
And
so maybe not that their opinion is invalid, but you can't feel as sincere.
I don't want to hear about studies. I want to hear about how you got through it.
Numbers and stuff.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
There's actually I've had to seek medical help for in a different way for mental afflictions. The first time I ever had a very severe panic attack, I thought I was having a heart attack. I'm like, I'm only 21, but
that's what it feels like.
I'm like, this is it. Yeah, nobody was awake in the house, and I was too anxious to speak to them because I was having a panic attack, but I didn't know it. So I called the ambulance, and they're like, yeah, you're fine. And I'm like, all right.
Right, but there's only so much, the EMTs can do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
And then actually recently, I had another one that was, I'd say, the worst one I've ever had in my life. I just couldn't. I was using all of my tactics that I've developed over the years, and it just was not getting better, and it wasn't going away.
Right.
And actually, in the middle of it, I gotta shout out to your boy Nick Dubé. You were the first person I messaged, and I was just like,
Oh.
it's one of those things. Just reaching out actually
Yeah.
does. Just turns the volume down just a little bit. You reach out, tell people what's going on. It helps you process it.
You're lucky
Nick
I was awake.
It was late. It was so late. And like, I was just doing nothing in my house. It was I had a really good day. And then it just hit me so hard, and it lasted 3 days.
So anxiety or panic attacks, you need to understand, is not punishment for you having something go on in your life.
Yeah.
It's chemical. It's natural. It happens.
And it comes in the most unexpected of times.
Right. Because
Yeah.
if you could expect it, then
Yeah,
then you could
would
avoid
have
it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
So after that lasting too long, I did go to the doctor just to be like, hey, I know this is probably anxiety, but can you guys just
But
check
you know
my
what?
vitals, tell me I'm okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But your
were.
anxiety could be being caused or prolonged by a physical ailment.
Sure. Yeah.
So like, I have a wacky thyroid, and that affects my mental health on a daily
Sure,
basis.
absolutely. Mhm.
So that's great that you've sought help, and you are probably currently still maintaining that
Yeah,
somehow.
no, we're back on the rise.
That's good.
I attribute it to I wasn't doing my due diligence for mental health. I wasn't doing anything. I was eating very poorly. I was not exercising at all, and I was kind of floating through. And that's, at least for me, I can't do that. I can't afford to do that. I'll start to slump back, and that's why that happened.
Right.
So I don't feel guilty for that, but I know that's the cause, and I know that if I get back on the horse, I'll be fine.
Well, that self-awareness is very important to your survival.
That's so important. That is. And also that what kind of therapy works for you? Is it art therapy? Is it
Yeah.
there's a lot of I don't like talking. I don't want to talk. Okay.
You don't have to.
Exactly. You don't
Yeah.
have to talk. There's so many other avenues to, look up where there are different therapists who sort of, do art, do music.
Sure.
There's so
And
many.
there's also groups. There's community groups like my organization, NAMI of Champlain Valley. We provide a group Monday through Friday, and those groups are actually, we provide more than that. But each group is therapy minded,
Right.
and we are. And people come in, and
Yeah.
we don't ask for diagnosis. We don't discuss your mental health necessarily. We just say, hey, this is what we're doing. We have an art class. We have writing. We have all sorts of
Writing,
Just
stuff.
like it's a hangout.
So,
Yeah.
but also I would like to add, if you were going to see a therapist and to talk to, which is very important and I think does help.
Oh, for sure.
If you're not liking how you're working out with that therapist, get another therapist.
There you
Yeah.
go, yeah.
Maybe there are places around here where you can't necessarily do that as very easy, but in Clinton County, there's lots of therapists. I need a therapist who's gonna call me on my bull crap, and I need a
Yeah,
I need a
keep you in
therapist
check.
that likes to push my buttons because that's the way I like to be treated. So, but I had to go through 3 or 4 therapists before I found the one that I utilize.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Right.
So let's move on to another question. And what misconceptions about mental illness did you have before you evolved into your mental health journey?
Can I pull up my list?
Well, what's a big one?
I guess the biggest part that plays into it for me is culturally speaking, just being a woman of color, international, all those things. There's a lot of pressure on yourself. Well, you've come this far, you've traveled this far, you have to make it work.
Sure.
Or you know the answer. You just need to move on. Then there's the other stigma of, if I want to be really honest with women, it's also like you're just acting up, or
Right.
it's the time of the month, and all
sure.
of those things play into it. So it's just
Yep.
like that's if I could, I can't even give you a number of how many people would say that to me.
It happens.
Yeah.
It's so insulting. It's super insulting.
It really is. And so that was huge. But also there's been a lot of support. So knowing who to go to, knowing how to get through it, all of that was a big challenge. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Andrew, what misconceptions did you have?
I guess I didn't really understand that it was a thing so much. I come from a little bit older of a family. Like
Okay.
Like my mom was 40 when she had me. So, and she was one of the, yeah, really?
Yeah.
So having the
Oh,
older
there you go.
family, mental health is a thing that's fortunately coming more into the light and spotlight and everything
Sure.
now. So
It's always been there. It just wasn't so obviously
yeah,
in
and
the
it was
light.
very downplayed,
Yep.
and there's a lot of repression.
Sure.
But, so when we talk about anxiety, I just thought it's like, oh, that's when you're worried about something. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what that is. But it wasn't until, this is such a weird thing that I had my awakening, but there was a TV show called Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. And
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, say one more time. Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide.
I've never heard of that.
Me
It's
neither.
it was a Disney Channel show for like preteens, like going into middle school and high school for the first time.
Okay.
And
Cool.
There was one episode where he talked about having math test like anxiety, and he's like, that's where like when you're worried about a math test because you're not very good at math, and it's that kind of like vicious cycle. It's like you don't feel like you're good at it, so you don't do the work, so you don't study, so you don't get better at it, and you're just always constantly.
Right.
And I'm just hearing that, I was like, I'm not the only one that feels that.
Right,
I'm like,
sure.
oh my, that's a real thing, and that's kind of what woke me up to it. And it's like, yeah, no, anxiety is extremely real, and that's knowing that it is the
Yeah.
thing, and you're not alone. It's so much.
I actually saw a speaker talk about anxiety, and I'm having a hard time remembering her name, but she was talking about how anxiety is a lifestyle of circles, because what it is you're just constantly, so you're anxious about paying your bill, so you don't pay your bill. So, and then that makes it worse, and that
Yeah.
makes you more anxious
late
about paying
fees.
your bill,
Yeah.
and then you just, all these things happen, and they happen in circles.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's cool. So the Disney Channel gave you some.
Of all things, yeah, and that's
Hey, you know what? It doesn't matter how you get here,
Yes.
right?
and that was just the
Or
that's
how you
what was,
begin
like,
your journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just what like flipped me on. Then I learned more as I aged, but
Yeah.
that was the first thing.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. So, let's go into the maintaining side. Now,
Sure.
what do you do to maintain your positive mental health? Let me preface this a little bit. And by this, so I'm going to assume, so you're a student,
Yes.
Vrinda,
Yes.
and you are a full-time
Yes.
student, but you also have extracurricular responsibilities.
Yeah.
And you probably have a couple friends.
Yep.
How do you maintain your lifestyle with virtually almost no time?
I would also like to know.
I take self-care really seriously now.
Okay.
And I spoke about this a little before with Matt, but it's not only like bubble baths and wine and
Yeah, that doesn't just fix all your problems.
Both of those things are not appealing to
Have you guys
me.
ever
Right,
had
and Netflix or whatever.
Yeah.
Sure, those things help distract you, but sometimes self-care is just like discipline. Like,
Sure, you're right. You're
I-
correct.
I need to take this 1 hour, even if I want to go and distract myself with being in a circle of friends. I'm actually going to sit here and meditate.
Sure.
Meditation is huge for me. It's very important, but it is hard.
Yeah,
sitting
it's
with
like
your breathing.
it's tricking your id a
Yeah,
little bit
yes,
Yeah.
by
yes.
incentivizing, by saying,
Exactly.
okay, if I'm going to do these things that I want to do, I have to do the things that I don't really want to do first.
Exactly.
Like when Andrew brought up that he realized that he needs to maintain his physical health and his
Yeah.
mental health, and he needs to
Yeah.
eat better.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat.
And then, I've always been someone, like, I could relate so much to both of you because I would avoid it, and then I would have the fear of avoiding it, and then there would be the self-talk.
Yeah.
There's also this really cool book, if you want to check it out. It's called The Power of Now by
Oh.
Eckhart Tolle.
It's such a good book.
It is
Oh my
amazing.
goodness, I love it.
The whole thing about the pain body and the being sort of tempted to get into the circle of negative self-talk, and
Yep.
how it's its own sort of addiction.
I quote it a lot, actually.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Yeah.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
So very cool, very cool. So Andrew, what about you? How do you maintain your positive health?
Yeah, I guess just pretty much what we spoke about. Fortunately for me, I think it's simpler than other people because, in a sense, because when I say exercise, obviously I'm not a bodybuilder. I can go for a walk. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
and I do run as well.
Cardiovascular in
getting back
any
into it.
form.
Yeah, but
Sure.
it can be anything. But as long as I do that pretty consistently, another thing that's really it's knowing and rejecting people that aren't good for you.
Wow.
Sure.
Yeah.
Social vampires
Yeah.
sometimes.
Filtering.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially when especially if there's kind of like a history. Maybe if you went to school together, you used to be friends, but you're not really compatible anymore.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult to tell them like, hey, I'm not really feeling this.
Well, you know what though, and I have to kind of jump in on this because this is something I feel like we all need to talk about a lot more. Just because you limit your involvement with somebody in your life because of their effect on you doesn't mean that you don't love them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you don't want good things for them.
Yeah.
And you don't have to say to them, "Hey, I don't like being around you." You don't have to do those things.
Right.
But what you can do is you can just limit your time. You
Right.
need to feel
Yeah.
good about it.
Right.
But yeah, I understand. And a lot of times those people are not just friends that you don't have to never see. It could be parents. It could be
Yep.
brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
These things do happen.
It's
But
exhausting.
just because you can't have somebody in your life doesn't mean you can't love them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
And this actually brought up another thought in my mind is when, especially if you're in the field of mental health work, or if you're self-aware or come across as someone who's doing their work,
Sure.
you attract people who also want to get there, right? So
Yeah.
then
Absolutely.
people will start asking you for advice. People will start asking you to listen, and that's emotional exhaustion.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that's not fair because in that particular setting, even if you are a professional, in that setting you're not a professional. So you're expecting someone who isn't working to work someone's full-time job and give you professional advice, which is
Right.
such a
It's tough because
yeah.
you are always going to have people in your life that are going to need you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you need to be yourself.
Yeah.
Need to be good at managing
Exactly,
what
yeah.
your abilities are.
Yep.
It took me 38 years to get to a point where I can say no, and I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, there are some people that I won't say no to. You know,
Yeah.
that I'll be cursing them. I'll be so angry that they got me in this predicament. But you know,
Completely
it's
relate.
not them. They didn't get me into the predicament. I said yes.
Yeah.
So that's how that goes.
Which
I'd like
feels selfish, right? Going back to that.
Right.
I'd like to know what you think, Nick. Especially, I find as a like a creator, when making like the Trashberg stuff, when if something hits a little bit harder, people start seeing it on Facebook and like, oh, I saw your thing, that was cool. People that you didn't really ever used to connect with, that you'll get the messages like, hey man, we should collab, and it's like they just want to be on your thing. You know what I mean? They want to jump onto your stuff.
Sure.
Depending on who that is, what do you have a method of working through? Most of the time for me, I just don't respond. You know what I mean? If it's somebody that I don't talk to anyway, and they're just trying to be like, hey man, let me do your thing because that'll benefit me. I don't care about it otherwise.
Well, so I feel like I'm gonna give away a trade secret a little bit
no.
here, but
Say it real quiet.
But
over
what?
here.
No. What
if you
I
just
do is no.
Yeah.
So sometimes, and let's generalize this a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Keep it
Sometimes if
vague.
you're doing something and it's awesome, other people are gonna want to do it too, and it could be either they want to be a part of it, or it could be because you had a great idea and they want to be whatever. That reasoning that they're just like, hey, it'll benefit me, let me do it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But you should have expectations. If they're expecting you, you should expect something from them.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, great. Hey, you want to come on my show? This is what I need for you to do first. And I've actually had guests who've loved the show, and I've said, okay, well, here's a questionnaire. Fill this out and let me know, and then maybe we can put together a show.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that, because I like to help people move forward. But I work in mental health. But if it was like content and stuff, you could just be like, hey, I don't really have the time. You don't ever have to lie to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, telling somebody that you don't have the time for something is almost always going to be true, because self-care, because any time that you could be taking care of yourself is time that you should prioritize. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
that's a
yeah,
good
that
point.
makes sense. And
So, but Andrew, you're doing a great job, and I happen to love the Trashberg stuff.
It's a good time.
So,
pretty cool.
And I would say, just to cover my own bases, if I have talked to you and like responded and like encouraged you to do stuff like either with me or on your own, then you're not one of the people I'm talking about.
yeah, yeah, okay.
And like also
Wink, wink.
I mean, I also, I try to empathize, and I wouldn't say that the people who reach out and stuff, I would love, if they reach out and they
Sure,
are
yeah,
able to point.
absolutely.
That's like a privilege in itself, and getting access to mental health right now, even here, is a privilege because there's so many barriers
Yeah.
socioeconomically, culturally, and all that. But so if they come up to me and I've been able to assist in any way, I think that's a great thing, and I'm honored to do that. But also after that, if I've asked you to like seek something or do something because, at least try it out, and you haven't, then that's where I
Right.
get exhausted.
You need to have follow through.
Yes.
So often in recovery, and this is in, all forms of recovery, you cannot drag somebody through their recovery.
Yes.
No,
They have to
absolutely not.
make those steps on their own.
Yes.
So when you're helping them, but you're doing more work, then you're not helping them.
That's not long
Right?
Yeah, it could be frustrating having those kind of people in your lives because for us, I feel like we understand what we, as we've talked about, we understand what we need to be healthy. And those people, I don't know, if you just see them, I don't know. I'm not trying to.
It's okay. We think less of you right now.
I'm not trying to criticize
all
any
good.
particular behavior, but if somebody, it seems like they're putting their happiness on somebody else.
Yeah.
That's-
Projection, and
Yeah.
projection is a real thing.
Absolutely.
But what I will say is there's a lot involved in this, and we're not going to be able to
Yeah,
cover
unpack it
everything.
all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But what I can say is people want good things for themselves and they want good things for others and people want to live in a good place and they want to do fun things.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when you're doing something and it's working and you attract or people gravitate towards you, you
That's
actually
awesome.
have this responsibility, I believe. You have a responsibility to have a plan action on how you are going to help other people as well as allow them to
Help
to
themselves.
experience what they want to experience. But if you're struggling for figuring out how you can do that, talk to me after the podcast and we can brainstorm a little bit. I would
Okay.
love
Love
that.
to. I actually have a question if I can
Sure.
ask.
Sure.
How many counselors or therapists does it take to change a light bulb?
Ooh, this is a good one. I don't
Right?
know.
I'm
Any
not
guesses?
sure.
No, one. No, I don't know.
One, but the light bulb will have to change itself.
Oh snap! Oh snap! Counseling joke. Take that, therapist.
Boom.
So this is a great segue then. How do you fail? So in what ways do you often find yourself failing in maintaining your mental health? Andrew, let's start with you.
I guess what I outlined before. It's like succumbing to comfort. If I
Sure.
find that if there's a, you know what I mean?
Rationalizing your ability to not do anything.
Yeah. I'm
Sure.
just like, I can just, eat junk food, watch videos all day long, and play video games and not stream it in a creative way. That's you know what I mean. I don't know if this is super healthy, but I always try to stray away from contentness. I don't want to ever be content because I feel like when you're fully content, I'm too
You have contempt for content.
contempt for content.
Pun intended.
I feel like if I'm happy in my life, I'll be too tempted to just ride that wave and not chase my aspirations. That doesn't mean I want to be unhealthy. Just I don't want to feel like I don't want to do anything because
Sure.
I'm like, oh, my life's okay. You know what I mean?
Sure. That's
It's a
something you should
complicated
work
one.
on.
Yeah.
It's something we should all work on because feeling good about the things that feeling good about taking care of yourself or enjoying something, sometimes people have that guilt.
Yes.
Yes.
We all need to work on that.
Yep.
Because sometimes when you're doing something and it feels good and you're taking care of yourself and you're just, this is nice. And then that creeping dread sets in and then it's just saying, you should be doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
These are not healthy ways to take care of yourself.
Feel
Yeah.
pressure. I feel pressure to allow that consistently and enough that I maintain health, mental health. But at the same time, I feel pressure to not feel it too much.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And
That's
Right.
the pain body, right? It's telling you deserve not, or you need to do more.
You need to
don't
do more.
Fully deserve this. That's that thing in all of us that tells us whatever that is making us somewhat not the best
Right.
that we can
Well,
feel.
we have a fear
Yes.
of becoming nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have a fear of just disappearing into our couch cushions.
Yeah.
And these are real things, but sometimes you need to align yourself to take care of yourself. So something that I've learned to do is the stuff that I would do to entertain myself. I now try my hardest to incorporate that into my mental health work a little bit. So if I was to play video games, I stream them, or or
exactly.
whatever, and I say, and I just talk about this kind of stuff. There are good ways to do that. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
But even another way I'll do this is I got into the world of Magic the Gathering, playing that card game, and I felt very guilty at first by playing it, because I'd be like, oh, I shouldn't spend money on this. I should, give this to my kids, or I should do this for myself, or do this for my community. But now I go, and when I play, people know what I do for a living, and like I'll be having a casual or a fun game with somebody, and then all of a sudden they'll just say like, "Hey, I'm thinking of seeing a therapist. What do you think?" And then I'll be like, oh, "Opportunity. This is great,"
Wow.
So you gotta tweak your life a little bit, and you're young enough that you can kind of start doing that, and I think you got a big heart, Andrew, so I think that's going to happen. So Vrinda, how do you fail, and what do you do to like correct yourself for that?
I think I would actually, if I can challenge, because
Sure.
because I fail every day, I think, in small ways, but I think that's just not to get too philosophical, but that's something that doesn't work for you, so eventually you'll find out what works for you. It's just one step,
sure.
So
You're
think,
failing your way to success.
yeah, and I think there's a stigma with failing, but then I don't know who said it. If you're not failing, you're not trying something new.
Sure, I'm sure that was said by some
chicken
corporate
soup,
entity somewhere.
right? Chicken soup book or something like that. But
Exactly.
seriously, it's there's a huge importance and humility that comes with failing, and I think if we all can be comfortable with that, we just one step closer to acknowledging that we're human. Who knew?
Yeah, exactly.
and then you find your way on what works and what doesn't.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask generally, and we'll just have a discussion about this. How do you succeed?
By failing.
By failing, yeah, right. I mean, you totally do. But also, you take a small approach.
Yes.
Sometimes you kind of have to align your paradigm in a different way. You have to look at something from a different perspective and say, "Hey, you know what? I had a bad day, but this was an opportunity for me to learn.
Exactly.
And tomorrow I'm going to try harder, and that's a success."
And every moment that I spend not feeding into that pain body thing that I was talking
Right.
about is a success.
Right.
Like, oh, this didn't work out. This is the pattern. This is why I didn't. Nope. I'm not going there right now. I'm going on. This didn't work out. What's next? It comes with a lot of struggle and discipline.
And I think the more you improve your mental health, the easier,
Oh,
the more you feel
100%.
that. It's like the difference between like
not easy.
spilling your milk and like getting really mad about it, and like freaking out, like, oh, now I gotta clean it up, and just spilling it, be like, oh, I'm so silly. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, sure.
I spilled it all over the couch. You know what I mean?
Darn it.
And it's like,
Yep.
I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, so like you had mentioned getting better about mental health, or getting better at being mentally well.
Yeah.
That's another way. But so I struggle with bipolar, and I also have major depressive episodes. And something that I had to learn was that my depressive episodes were something that's just a part of me. And if I'm in it, I need to just feel it, but also know that it's going to get better, and just kind of like, but still, if I'm having a bad day, I need to just be aware that I'm having a bad day, and just forgive myself for
accept
it
it,
and
yeah.
stuff. And that's a success, because my depressive episodes don't get worse when I accept myself for just being, oh, that's just who I am right now, but tomorrow, it could be better. Who knows?
And to reiterate, do you guys feel that as well? Like the more you do to improve your mental health, the easier those things become.
Oh, sure.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
There's been times where you said that where I will be depressed, and I'll tell somebody, I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling kind of depressed, and like, oh man, are you okay? Like, what's going on? I'm like,
Or why? Or they go, why?
yeah. Why is the best question.
Why are you depressed? What's wrong?
Oh my God.
Oh well, let me
Go
tell
out,
you.
Smell the wind.
Yeah.
Sunrise.
I spilled my milk.
All that stuff. Oh my God.
But no, absolutely. It's like the more, it's in those moments when I'm having it. If I was depressed, I'd be like, yeah, I'm depressed. And they ask why or what's going on. I'm like, I just feel this way sometimes. And it's even like you can allow yourself to. It almost feels good to allow yourself to feel the sad.
Sure. But I think
it's a
what
miracle.
you're talking about is actually, so in the recovery field, we actually refer to that as recovery capital. And what that is you experience a mental health issue in your life. You learn ways to work yourself through it. And but so then when that comes back again, you have a system that you know that you can work yourself through, and that's recovery capital. And what's important about recovery capital is that you understand that just because it works for you doesn't mean it will work for someone else. However, that doesn't mean that you can't help someone who's in that situation by saying, you know what, I've had bad days too. This is how I deal with it. Let's figure out a way that you can deal with it. So that's recovery capital, and I think I think you're becoming wealthy with recovery capital.
Oh my,
Andrew. So that's a good thing.
Does it have any monetary value?
It does have monetary value. Sure. Why not? So what in our world needs to change
I couldn't
in
answer
mental
this
health?
question.
It's a tough one.
I don't know.
Just
because we
one
don't
thing?
want to be negative.
Yeah.
But I'll just throw something out there. We need to stop being okay with Nazis. We need to stop being okay with hate groups.
Mm-hmm.
We need to, even though I do believe in an individual's right to be offensive and offend, I don't believe that any person's rights should overstep someone else's rights and abilities, right?
Okay, sure.
So, and that works with mental health as well, because a lot of times, and so I'm glad you're here, Vrinda. So we're going to talk about this because you're going to be going into the professional world. A lot of times you will be given that pressure of saying, you're going to be a professional, therefore you can't have struggles. You can't have mental health struggles. You can't have a bad day. And don't ever tell anyone that you are. That's a stigma that needs to end. We need to start having that even playing field. So
and I mean, it's very putting too much on someone who's helping others and not expecting them to have their own struggles. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I know it's just like, it's like if you've had a long day, you can be exhausted. You're a human being. And I really like the thing about not being okay with the things that's happening in terms of not being okay with hate speech
Nazis
and all, because there's a whole thing of, well, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Opinion is like, I don't like pineapples on my pizza. It's not like I don't want you to live or marry.
I don't think people of a certain color should live. It's not an opinion that I'm ever going to be, hey, I respect your opinion.
My gosh, it just seems like a no-brainer, but I mean, I just try to empathize with those even who feel like that because they're going through their own mental struggles.
Or maybe they honestly, and this is something I say often, where it's like maybe they don't know better. Maybe this is part of their culture that I don't understand. So, but then at the end of the day, I'm not going to defend someone's rights to say that.
That's not exonerating it. I'm
no,
saying like, oh, that's fine. I just don't get it.
Eugenics is not a good idea. Like there's these talking points that I'm like, no, I'm not going to agree with that.
My therapist said this really beautifully once. She said, things like that, empathizing and all is good. It's like an explanation for their behavior. It's not an excuse.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's okay to have an explanation. But I live in a world where I believe wholeheartedly that everybody has the potential to change. And so because of that, I can talk to somebody who's wearing a, Southern Cross flag and I'll be like, hey, let's talk. It might not be that thing, but I do have my stigmas too. If I walk into a place and some guy's wearing a Make America Great Again hat, I'm always like, I don't want to talk to this guy. But that's just me. So I need to evolve. But what else needs to change? So I just brought up a global thing, but what else needs to change in this world?
I really struggled with this one.
You're content with the world as it is?
Everything's nice. Everything's good. I don't think there's any problems.
We all just get along.
Yeah. Come on. Everybody's having a good time.
Right.
Maybe something about just mutual respect for other humans. I don't know. That sounds
no, it's a good world peace is a good answer.
Yeah.
It's worked its way in Miss America
inspired.
pageants all over the place.
Yeah, I don't know. It was too big for me. I couldn't.
That's
think of
okay.
anything.
That's definitely okay because I will tell you I don't think you're one of those ignorant guys that's going around going there's no problems.
Right.
Why? That's not an issue.
No. But
No.
As far as pinpointing one thing, I don't know.
Right.
There's a lot.
How about you, Vrinda?
If I can, I'm going to now wear my advocacy hat and put my
Boom.
counselor hat
Love it.
on the side. But just one small thing I would say is I am, interested in bringing those people who are on the fence about this, who are neutral, to the side of saying that silence in itself is oppression. Silence.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Silence is like
If you see something, say something.
If there's a fire, if you see there's a fire, like car on fire, or whatever, and if you say I didn't do anything, I didn't make it worse by putting, I don't know, wood on it, but you still didn't call the ambulance, you still didn't stop, and as I think, as a responsible citizen, you should.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some places have what they call Good Samaritan laws, where if you witness a crime, you become privy to the crime unless you reported the crime. And there are issues with that. Yeah. But I think we could break it down as simple as like domestic violence or child abuse or spousal abuse or, I guess that's domestic violence too. But all of these things, or bias, or political issues, if you don't say something or you don't at least put your 2 cents in, you're guilty for allowing that happen in some way.
For sure.
That's the advocates'
and
problem.
Also the whole thing of, there's also this sector where well-meaning people who say, I don't see difference, I don't see different religion, I treat everybody the same, I don't see color, I don't see this, I don't see gender, I don't see anything. But that is just
bullshit.
Scientifically untrue, right?
It's total bullshit.
Right? And if you don't, let's say, see someone for their difference, you're not seeing them as a whole, and you're somewhere being unjust. I think.
Well, sometimes people see difference and they go and they try to categorize, and they'll say people think that difference also means, all right, well, if I'm here and you're different than me, am I better than you, or are you better than me? Whereas that's not the case.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anybody. You know what I mean? And also just the whole thing of we need to be fair to everybody, we need to be equal to everybody. It feeds into also mental health. Some people struggle more with mental health than others.
Sure,
and if you're treating everybody the same, you're not helping the ones who are struggling more. In the same way, you need to be like equitable rather than equal.
Right. So both of you, have you heard of the platinum rule?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think so, no.
So the golden rule.
Yes.
Treat others as you would want them to treat you. Well, the platinum rule definitely really works in the mental health field, that is treat others as you think they would like to be treated.
Ooh, very cool.
Because there are people who don't want the help that you want to offer because that's what you would like.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say, is that where you sell 10 million albums?
No, see, that's where right. But really, what that is a lot of times people will say, "Hey, well, you know what? I had to go through life this certain way, so if it worked for me, it'll work for them." And that's not the truth. That's not the truth. So the platinum rule, right?
Platinum rule always.
We gotta use that, right? So, well, I got one more question. We're kind of hitting our time, and that is. What in your mental health journey has benefited you the most? What in your life? Now, we've talked about therapy already, but what is one thing that you could say that has made your life better in the terms of mental health?
I don't really like mine, because mine is whimsical and it's straight out of a fairy tale.
Please, I could use a little whimsy.
I don't.
This is good.
This is not something that you should ever expect to happen to you. But literally, I had one of those epiphanies one day where I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to feel like this. I know what I figured out. I was like, I know if I do this stuff, I'll feel better. So I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna allow myself to feel this way anymore. Right.
And alcoholics will refer to that as a moment of clarity often.
Okay, sure.
And a lot of people in mental health, a lot of therapists might call it an aha moment. Right? Yeah. Well, that's a good thing, though.
Yeah.
But it's also a lack of tolerance on your end too. Wait. You were not willing to tolerate subpar life anymore.
But it was weird though. It's like everything shut off. It's like it's almost like it all stopped right there. Right. And I know that that's why I say it's magic and whimsical and straight out of a fairy tale, because you can't just wait for that day to happen.
No. No, but it did happen for you.
It did. It really did.
But you know what? That probably does happen for other people, but they don't take action. And you did. And you are.
Yeah.
And that's a good
I would
thing.
hope so.
And you're talking about it. I think that's amazing. Like there's so much strength in honesty and being vulnerable, being okay with that.
Absolutely.
I found that as a great just a resource. Yeah. Because talking about it, like it just feels good.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like objectively good for you.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Someone listening really needed to listen to that, hear
That's
that.
that's good.
So good
That's
for
good.
you.
Did you have a magic moment that everything just turned around? Your life was great.
Yeah.
Wow, good for you.
Oh,
Vrinda.
no, sorry, not that last part,
You're
not the
fine.
last part. I had a
That's only Andrew.
Yeah.
Just me.
I had a moment in which I was like, I want to change this.
Sure.
And I want to be honest about it. So I stopped. I stopped really, hiding behind it. I stopped justifying it. I stopped feeding into the negative talk. And,
Right.
if my friends would ask me where you're going, I would say therapy. If my friends asking how you're doing, I would be honest. There's
Right.
the whole, how are you? I'm good. Okay, bye.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
the
Yeah.
social contract.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Sometimes
It's
you have to
hard.
evolve into
It's
that.
so
Sometimes you
hard,
don't say,
yeah.
"Hey, I'm going to therapy."
Yeah.
You could just say, "Hey, I'm going to a doctor's appointment."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's okay
Sure,
because
it's
someday you
all-
might be okay
yeah.
enough to say therapy.
true, yeah.
But what in your life do you think you've benefited most in mental health? Is what do you think? What moment was it? An aha moment for you, or
I think it was a build up towards a small aha moment that at the moment didn't feel like an aha moment.
okay,
You know,
sure.
Support is huge.
Yeah.
Finding your allies is huge. Finding people. I think isolation is sometimes even a cause and it's a symptom to so many things.
You moved to Plattsburgh 5 years ago. You
Yes.
said. Now you moved to Plattsburgh 5 years ago from where?
From Dubai.
From Dubai.
Yeah.
So you went from Dubai, and you were rifling through some sort of pamphlets, and you're just like, wow, I've always wanted to go to Plattsburgh. This is great. And you bought a ticket and jumped on, and you haven't been back since.
And
Well,
here we
maybe you
are.
have.
It's less. I wish that was the case, but it was more of okay. I had to go through so many short lists, and
Oh, sure.
I applied to Canada
Yeah.
first. That didn't work out.
Yeah, I'm kind of summing it up, and
Yeah.
and we're laughing because I know international students and a lot of people from other countries. Coming, it's not as easy as just coming to America
Yeah.
and just being like, oh, Plattsburgh.
Like, here
There's
we
a
are.
process and
Yeah, I'm
stuff.
sure.
So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but what I'm leading to is so did you know people? Did you have friends that were coming
No,
here?
nobody.
So you had to make new friends,
Yeah.
make new connections.
Right.
Your network, you had to start from
Start from
scratch.
yeah.
That's pretty
Build it in,
daunting. So
yeah.
Yeah.
what ways did you? What did you utilize in order to do that?
Throughout, I guess the whole 5 years was just being open
Right.
that I'm not right. I just,
Okay.
the whole one thing that's been common is that I don't know everything. And my God, how liberating it is and how easy it is then to just have a conversation, make connections. You don't judge people based on, I mean, of course you do. I do that too.
Oh, yeah, we all judge people.
Yeah,
We-
yeah. But just being open to, I feel this way about this person now. That might change. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I guess what helped me most is being someone who doesn't know.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. How liberating is that
Right.
when you can say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then people are like, what? Okay.
What do you mean?
How
I
can
don't
you
know.
not know?
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for
course,
being
thank
here
you.
today.
You're very welcome.
I feel like I've grown as a human being in just having this discussion with both of you. So if anybody has any questions for Vrinda or Andrew Taylor,
Yes, Taylor.
you can go ahead and shoot. You can message the Facebook page, or you can shoot me a message at my email, which is nick@nami-cv.org, and I will forward any questions on to these two fine folks, and maybe we can benefit from having them back on the show again
amazing.
sometime soon.
Sure.
So thank you all.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you,
this
Nick.
is amazing.
Yes, and take care of yourselves and take care of each other, because we all know that survival is so much more than staying alive.